Alright, so I just watched 1995's Heat for the first time tonight with De Niro and Pacino, and I have things to say about it because I feel like what people think of this movie, either they're of the camp that think it's a good, well-crafted crime thriller, or they're like, oh, it's the first time that Pacino and De Niro face off on screen. That's basically what people think of Heat, but I think there's so much more to it, and I just want to talk about that. What I saw in Heat was a really touching character film that just has so much to it, you know? That's partly because there are actually two protagonists. There's twice the content and twice the narrative to this movie because there are two actors and characters that it is flowing through. If you know anything about Heat, this will be familiar to you, but I'll just explain it to anybody who doesn't. Heat follows De Niro, who is a crime boss of sorts, and Pacino, who is a lieutenant of police, as they go head-to-head surrounding a bank heist. Now, that's how the movie's going to be sold to the executives at the studio and to the audience and to everything else. That's how it's going to be sold. But what it really is a character piece about middle-aged men. That's what it is, and this is the most exciting character piece of middle-aged men that you will see on film. When you think of a movie being sold as a character piece of middle-aged men, you don't exactly think of Heat. But Heat is that movie. Heat is the story of two men who are not alcoholics or sex addicts or addicted to violence. They're just run down by life, and they are running from responsibilities, consequences, and attachments. Heat perfectly displays the duality of man. And I'm not using man as a general term for humans, I mean men. It tells the story of men who are at once completely unfeeling and completely desperate. Men who are overwhelmed but lonely. These are men who have a lust for resolution, and this is why the movie has to be told through two characters, and that is the genius of Heat, is that it is told through two characters. Duality of man, but it's not straightforward enough to have them be exactly similar in their character traits because people aren't like that. Michael Mann, the director of this movie, doesn't relate them together through extremely heavy-handedly similar circumstances. He doesn't do any of that 6 degrees of separation bullshit. He just presents these two men and lets your mind connect them together, not through extremely similar circumstances, just by similar traits. Both these men are lonely. Both these men are running from things that are chasing them in life. They are running from the heat. That's why it's called Heat. Yeah. And I can prove this. I can prove this by saying one thing. Pacino and De Niro are never in the same frame together. It is either an over-the-shoulder of them all the time, or they're just straight up not in frame with each other. Straight up. That is to emphasize the duality of man. At first in the film, I was kind of taken aback by kind of how mellow these men were treating the circumstances around them. These really high-stakes circumstances. These men are at the end of their rope, and it shows throughout the film, but sometimes they just treat it with such nonchalance. But that is the film. It might sound like a weird point, but men are passionate until they're not. They're lonely until they're not. They're desperate until they're not. They spring into action until they don't. And I feel that this is the complex of man. Not only man, but middle-aged man. About 3/4 of the way through the film, when Pacino comes home to see that his wife has cheated on him with another man who is in fact there, he doesn't react by kicking him out or getting extremely angry at the man or anything like that. He reacts by taking his television and leaving in a somewhat subdued manner. I won't spoil the end of the film, but De Niro's arc is such that he achieves what he wants, but he fucks himself over because he goes back for repentance of some way, because he cannot let go of what he has attached to him. And that's the whole complex of the film, is that these men are aware that when they attach themselves to something, it makes them weaker. But they can't help it, because that is the complex of man. We are smart until we are not. We are lonely until we are not. We are horny until we are not. Adding to that, this is what everybody already knows about Heat. It is an extremely perfectly shot movie. The technical component is amazing. It holds up to this day. I'm so fascinated by this film because you just don't see movies like this anymore. This is a movie that I feel has been misunderstood because of its surprising depth, but I don't feel that there are movies being made anymore that are misunderstood because there aren't depth. And more than it being a complete and succinct work of art, I feel like it is a great commentary and thought piece on the complex of man.